Hello and welcome to another video. Today I'm going to make pasta puttanesca. Pasta puttanesca is an Italian dish, but today I'm going to make kind of a sort of American variant on it. One of the big things that typifies American Italian food is that you have a lot more overwhelming flavors and stronger flavors of things, while typically in Italian food itself you don't have quite as much. In this particular case, this kind of dish is, I guess, sometimes made in Italy this way also, but it's not the typical way. So I'm going to make it sort of an American way first, and maybe in a future video I will come back and compare to a more Italian way. So I hope you really enjoy this dish. It's one of my favorites. It's simple, savory, delicious. So here we have the main ingredients. Crushed tomato, sort of in sometimes they call this crushed tomato and puree, and if you're in the US, that's what I would use. Capers, anchovies, garlic, olive oil, and Kalamata olives. Now, this isn't a lot of different kinds of ingredients, but we have to be a little careful because 3 of these ingredients are very high in salt. So getting this dish to come all out right is all about blending these 3 flavors and making sure that it's not too salty. And of course, at the end, I will shave on Parmesan cheese. Finally, of course, in this particular case, I will use spaghettini. It doesn't have to be spaghettini. In fact, you can use any kind of pasta you like, but I particularly like these long pastas, whether it's a linguine or a spaghetti or spaghettini or whatever. Yeah. So in order to manage the salt, one of the things I'm going to do is I'm going to make a set amount of the sauce. That makes it a little easier, and I'm going to make it around 1 bottle of these anchovies. This is, I think, about 12 fillets to 1 container here. If you're in the US, you get a sort of a kind of wide can of tomato puree or a wide can of crushed tomatoes and puree, and that's about the same size. But we'll go ahead and go that route. So first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to chop the garlic fine, and you can come back to see a later video at some point. Perhaps I will go over basic skills relating to chopping onions, garlic, that sort of thing. So to get this started, I'm going to take my garlic. I'm going to put it in a skillet. This is 2 cloves of chopped garlic. To this, I am going to add this bottle of anchovies. It's similar, I think, in size to a US can. And I'm going to leave all the oil in it. And then I'm going to turn this on to a medium, so about a 5. And I'm going to let this start to cook until the anchovies start to dissolve. While this happens, I will start to prep the olives. So here I have a handful of olives. These are Kalamata olives. Now, Kalamata olives are, of course, a Greek olive, so that's one indication that maybe this would not be an Italian version of this. In the Italian versions that I've heard of, they typically use oil-cured black olives. So that's going to have, wind. That's going to have a very different flavor. And I think another time I will come back and do that. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to pit these olives. And if you've never pitted olives, easiest thing to do, just cut them open and unwrap them around the pit. And then when I have some of these done, then I'm going to chop them. So just to keep this manageable, I'm going to go ahead and chop this, keep the video manageable. I'll chop these now, and then I will go ahead and do the rest. So I will then do the same to the rest of these olives. Now, right now, I can smell that this is starting to cook. I'm going to add just a little bit of extra virgin olive oil. In the US, you probably don't need to do this because usually your anchovies are packed in olive oil, but here in Europe, they're usually packed in sunflower oil, and I think this gives a better flavor. By the way, really funny story, which I'll come back to in another video. When I was in Sweden, I didn't realize that the word for anchovies was sardeller. And I went to make this dish, and I went to the store, and I found this tin that looked like anchovies, and it said anchovies on it, so I thought, oh, must be anchovies. Took them home, opened them up. They looked exactly like anchovies. I cooked this dish with them, and it came out absolutely terrible. Reason being, anchovies in Swedish are actually similar in terms of the kind of fish, but they're preserved entirely differently. Instead of being preserved in salt, they're preserved in sweet spices. This is starting to get close. I'll come back in a few moments and we can add more to the sauce. So at this point I can smell things. The fish are nicely broken up, everything's nice and fragrant, and so I'm going to start cooking the rest of the ingredients together for the sauce, except the tomatoes so far. So let me add the olives. That might be slightly too much, but we will see. And capers. And I'm going to go ahead and let this cook for maybe another 2 minutes, and then I will add the tomatoes. So now this has been cooking for a while, and a lot of the flavor of the anchovies and garlic is going into the oil. So now we're going to add tomato. You can even just use a straight tomato puree, which I think is what I managed to grab here. It's fine. And then we're going to go ahead, stir this together, and cook it until it's all blended together, and we can really get sort of all those flavors nicely there. Then I'll go ahead and taste it, adjust if necessary, but shouldn't be necessary. And then we will go ahead and cook the pasta and do the final blending. You'll note that there is a layer of oil that forms on the top. That's fine. But again, we'll go ahead and let this cook for a bit. And so now you can see there's still this layer of oil. That's fine, as I mentioned. The anchovies have completely dissolved in the tomatoes, and the oil will carry with it the flavors of garlic, while the tomato itself should be relatively salty. I think this is okay. I will let it kind of slowly cook for maybe another 5 minutes, and then we'll come back. I'll take it off the heat, and we will do the pasta portion itself. So I've taken this off the heat, and you can, if you were here, you could really smell how rich the anchovies and garlic are within this within the sauce. So I'm going to go ahead and take a, I'm going to go ahead and, okay, so I've removed this from the heat and let it cool down a little bit. I find that often allows for a slightly thicker sauce once I mix everything together. And if you were here, you could really smell the anchovies and garlic and stuff. So this is really good. I'm going to go ahead and take this, and I'm going to put it, I'm going to take the sauce itself and put it in a bowl. I would then use whatever I want to use today, and maybe put the rest in a freezer bag or a set of freezer bags, one per serving, that I can use tomorrow. Now, I'm going to mix the pasta in this frying pan, so I don't need to get it perfectly clean here right now. Onto the pasta, going to go ahead and salt my water. As soon as this boils, I will go ahead and add the noodles. So now we have a nice rolling boil. I'm going to go ahead and take my noodles and add them to the water. And basically as quickly as I can, as quickly as they start to soften, we'll bend them down and into the water. These spaghetti servers are great for managing ribbon pasta even in the water. And there we go. This will take approximately 5 minutes, maybe less. And then we will go ahead and mix the sauce and the pasta together. So now it's been a few minutes more, and the pasta is nicely al dente. So I'm going to go strain it, and we'll add it back to this frying pan. Since I'm not holding it, I'm not going to run it under cold water or anything like that. I'm just shaking the water out of the pasta and shaking the pasta into the pan. Then I will take the sauce and I will scoop some of it in and stir this until it's done, until it's nicely kind of stirred in, and if I need to I can add more sauce. Now this is a fairly full-bodied Putanesca, so you don't need that much sauce. Maybe just a hair. No, this is probably even good as it is. So then from here, it just goes straight onto the plate, And I will top it off with Parmesan cheese. So here we have the noodles on the plate. Going to add Parmesan. Again, vegetable peelers are wonderful for this. And once you have enough Parmesan on here, you can, if you want, garnish it with some other things. Maybe put one olive in the middle, or some chopped parsley or something like that. In this case, I am going to garnish it with just Kalamata olive. Just set it in the center like that. And there we have our pasta Putanesca. And so here we have our pasta Putanesca. Again, this is sort of an American version. The flavors are a bit stronger than they might be in an Italian version. And I'm just going to go ahead and try it. This is delicious. Absolutely delicious. And when I was in college, I just used to make this fairly frequently. Oftentimes, right after college, I didn't have a lot of money. So if I would invite friends over for dinner, I could go ahead and make this. And even though some ingredients are a little more expensive, the whole per plate dish is super inexpensive. And it would allow me to produce classy food on a really short budget. This is still one of my favorite sort of American Italian dishes years later. And I've never seen this particular variant here in Europe, so that's why I think this one is American. I will come back in a later video, try it with like the oil-cured olives they typically use in Italy, and so we can talk about the differences. So pasta Putanesca, as I said before, is one of my favorite dishes. I learned to make it in a cafeteria when I was in college, and it's one of those recipes I've continued to carry with me. This particular version is super rich. It's very flavorful. And it's one of those dishes that you can just make for a lot of different kinds of people, even those who say they hate anchovies, and it will be a hit every time. So thank you for watching. If you have any questions, feel free to leave me a comment. I don't have any extended advice on this particular one or various variations. So we'll just go ahead and leave this one at this for now. But as I say, this is a delicious dish, and I hope you like it.